Hey guys, it's your loan officer Linda here, and I want to share with you my story and how I got into the real estate business. I'm a loan officer, but how I kind of got into it. So, when I first moved to Vegas, I was told many, many times I could not qualify for a loan because of this, because of this. And, there were reasons why I could not qualify. In my head, I didn't understand it. I had decent enough credit, wasn't the best. But I know I made money and I'm really good at saving money. So I had money. And when I was being told no, it wasn't that I didn't understand, I didn't agree. And so I kept hunting for that no, or for that yes. And eventually I was speaking to a girlfriend and she was like, well, I have a guy who does private loans, hard money essentially. And we got together. I spoke to him and I was like, I'm not trying to do anything huge. I just want to get a condo because I was going to rent an apartment anyways. My first year in Vegas, I lived with two roommates, one of them being my sister, but they eventually moved back to California. And so my choice was to go rent an apartment or try to buy something. So I was desperately trying to buy something because I really did not want to rent anything. And so we're chatting, and he says, it's going to be minimum 20% down, 12% interest. And I was looking for that yes. I wanted that yes so badly. So I was like, okay, let's do it. And it wasn't very much that I borrowed. I ended up putting about 35% down because at the time, my condo, and this was 2014, I bought my condo in 2014, $68,500. Okay, so in my journey to, I reached out to a real estate agent. She helped me find the right condo. We looked at several of them. We finally decided on one. Put in the offer. We're in contract. And I had a lot of people kind of give me a lot of negative feedback, right? So I want you to be careful when you're in this home buying journey. You can get really excited. And then you listen to the naysayers. And what my naysayers was saying is, 12% interest? Are you crazy? Why would you pay that? That is insane. You shouldn't do it. Or, again, 2014, the market was kind of bouncing back up from the crash. And they're like, no, don't buy anything right now. Just wait because the housing market's going to crash again. And you're buying it as the market is going up. Don't do it. It's not a good idea. So halfway through the ESCO process, I went to my realtor and I said, I want to cancel. I'm just going to wait. And she gives me what are you waiting for? And I was like, I don't know. I'm going to wait until I'm more prepared. I had all of these doubts, all of these naysayers in my sphere that talked me out of buying this condo. Oh, another one too, that the naysayers were saying was, condos don't appreciate the same way as a single family residence or a townhome. So you should just wait and save your money so that you can buy a single family residence or a townhome because condos don't appreciate in value. Without knowing any better, I listened to them. So I went to her and I said, no, I'm just going to cancel. Wasn't till I talked to a really good coworker who I consider now one of my best friends. And we'd worked together at the time. And she said, let's sit down. Let's talk about this. She doesn't remember the conversation. I brought it up to her many times. She doesn't remember this conversation, but it was such a core memory for me. And it was so impactful. And I owe so much to that one tiny conversation. And she's like, sit down. Let's talk about this. She's like, you're buying a condo for $68,500. My loan amount ended up being about $50,000. And she was like, how much would the payment be? Interest only, $500. And then I'd have to pay on that, off the loan amount as quickly as possible because I'm paying 12% interest until I pay off that loan amount. She was like, okay, well, how much is an apartment going to cost you? And she's like, don't worry about whether or not the property appreciates. It's $68,500. people pay more for cars than that. She's like, in this case, you have a roof over your head, and when you pay it off and you want to upgrade to the next house, you can just rent that out. I'm almost positive you can rent that property, that condo out, and still come out ahead. So she said, don't worry about the 12%. It makes sense, because if you go to rent an apartment, let's say, I think at the time it was like $850 for a 1-bedroom apartment. I kind of looked around, but not seriously. She said, that's 100% rent, or that's 100% interest rate. You could pay $500 at 12% interest, or you can pay $850 a month, the 100% interest rate. And I said, okay, that all of that makes sense. So I go back to my realtor and I tell her, okay, I want to move forward. I bought the condo. I lived in it for 4 years. I paid off the whole thing. I worked 3 jobs, paid the whole thing off after 3 years. By the time I sold it, I only had it for 4 years. By the time I sold it for $141,000. Bought it for $68,500, sold it for $141,000. In my head, I'm thinking that's a fantastic deal. And it was just straight cash, because I had already owned the home outright, free and clear. So in my head, regardless of the 12% interest that I paid for 3 years, in my head, I'm thinking, in the 4 years that I lived there, I paid 0 rent. And then for every dollar I had put in for the loan and the cost and everything, essentially I got 2 back when I sold it. And that helped me realize the power of owning real estate. Now, I don't always recommend going the private money route or the expensive route, but the other option was to not own. And that's how I got into the whole real estate thing, because I went, oh, I've always heard that you can make money, you can grow generational wealth with real estate. That's how the rich people typically have done it historically. But I didn't know it. You hear it, but you don't understand it. And once I sold that condo and I got all of that money, I thought, wow, oh, I see. This is the power of owning real estate that everybody has told me my whole life. I finally understand it now. And so the 12% interest didn't really matter to me, because I came out on top. And that's a message I want to do for you. Don't let the naysayers talk you out of something that's going to help you and your family. They may have had a different situation when they bought their home, and it's not exactly the same as yours. That doesn't mean that it's bad. The interest rates can always be refinanced after the fact, because once you buy the home and rates come down, now the goal for me was to refinance that out of that 12% once, once I was able to qualify for a loan. And I was on such a good run that I was like, you know what? I was making good money. I'm really good at putting away money. I go, I'm just going to pay the whole thing off and not have to deal with this. And that's exactly what happened. So I just, I was so close to paying it off, it wasn't worth it to, refinance for $20,000, $25,000. So I went full steam ahead and just tried to pay everything off as soon as possible. But the naysayers can really affect your motivation to buy, but they don't live your life. Very similar to, haters can speak what they want. They don't pay your bills. Another takeaway from my experience that I had was, had I listened to those naysayers, I would have missed out on an amazing opportunity. If you go back to Zillow, I got my Zillow's estimate, because I check up on that condo every once in a while. It was my first love. It was such a cute little condo, just me and my little dog at the time. And it fluctuates anywhere from about $200,000 to $250,000, $15,000 right now. I sold it, mind you, in 2018 for $141,000. And the lady who I sold it to still lives there. But when they were talking about condos are a bad investment, maybe it's a bad investment for them, but it wasn't for me. And really, I didn't care about the investment part. I cared about, I just want a roof over my head. I just want to go somewhere and live in peace. So that way a landlord isn't trying to kick me out or raise my rent or whatever. And that condo gave me that peace of mind. It gave me that security and that stability. And it was the stepping stone for me to be able to um, elevate my life. Huge game changer. And it's so weird to say that, right? And so if you talk to a lot of people that have bought homes, their whole mindset changes, their whole demeanor, their whole financials change, hopefully for the better. Some people have negative experiences, but my experience was incredibly, incredibly positive. And that is actually kind of what catapulted me into the whole lending space. And that's a whole nother story for another day, but I want to be able to help people buy a home because at the end of the day, I just wanted to buy a home. And I accomplished that, just not with the traditional means of what everybody else is um, believing. So your journey is going to be a little bit different than my journey and your cousin's brother's baby mama. So talk to a lender, talk to a realtor, and let's get a plan specifically for you because your hopes, your dreams, and your goals are going to be very different from somebody else's. And so if it doesn't work out, all that got wasted was a conversation. But I want to be able to be that resource for you because somebody out there was that resource for me. You can always give me a call, 702-574-1877. Let's talk about your scenario and see how I can help you. Talk to you soon. My mouse.